The wins and losses are all crap. The highs and lows are all crap. It's illusory. It doesn't really exist. What exists is seeing these guys and their kids, those relationships with your assistant coaches, everybody else you're with, your colleagues, your friends, because that's what you take with you as you move along.
This is Gregg Popovich, a mastermind on the sidelines, a 5-time NBA champion, and widely regarded as one of the greatest coaches basketball has ever seen. Popovich transformed the San Antonio Spurs into a dynasty built on teamwork, discipline, and longevity. But beyond the X's and O's, what truly makes Pop stand out is his exceptional ability to connect with players on and off the court. Players who not only thrived under his guidance, but helped define his legacy. So let's break down Pop's favorite basketball players, their unique bond, and why each player holds a special place in his heart. David Robinson, the Admiral who set the standard. Known as the Admiral, David was a force of nature on the court and a beacon of professionalism off it. His impact wasn't just about numbers, though those were staggering. Over 21,000 career points, 10 All-Star appearances, 2 NBA scoring titles, and Defensive Player of the Year honors. He was dominant on offense, relentless on defense, and threw down some of the most jaw-dropping highlights of the 1990s. But Robinson's career was marked by far more than stats. It was his character and leadership that truly made him one of Popovich's favorite players. And when Popovich officially took over as the head coach of the Spurs in 1996, David was the franchise's centerpiece, a player who embodied everything Pop wanted in a leader and cornerstone: humility, discipline, and a team-first mentality. "David made my job easier," Pop said during a 2015 interview, reflecting on their time together. "He lived with class, he played with honor, and he pushed everybody to be their best, without saying much." His journey to NBA greatness was anything but ordinary. Drafted first overall in 1987 out of the Naval Academy, he didn't play his first NBA game until 1989 because of a 2-year commitment to the U.S. Navy. It was a detour that showcased his discipline and work ethic, the kind of traits Popovich valued most. And when he finally arrived in the NBA, he was an instant sensation, winning Rookie of the Year while averaging 24 points and 12 rebounds per game. But his competitive journey wasn't always smooth. Despite his dominance, the Spurs often fell short in the playoffs. As critics argued, Robinson lacked the killer instinct to carry his team to a championship. Still, David continued to work tirelessly, and his efforts on and off the court helped solidify the foundation for greatness that Popovich would help him achieve years later. And by the time Tim Duncan entered the league in 1997, Robinson was already a proven star. With the addition of Duncan, the Spurs suddenly had 2 generational players in their front court. But while many stars might struggle with sharing the spotlight, David took it as an opportunity to elevate his team. In what would become one of the most selfless gestures in league history, David willingly stepped aside and embraced Duncan as the team's leader while mentoring him every step of the way. That humility was something Popovich never forgot. David wasn't about himself. He never cared about stats or personal glory. He just cared about the team, Pop once explained. His ability to adapt to Duncan's rise was instrumental in leading the Spurs to their first championship in 1999. An accomplishment that validated years of hard work and silenced critics who had doubted his ability to win on the biggest stage. And while his legacy is often tied to Duncan and the beginnings of the Spurs dynasty, Robinson's individual brilliance remains undeniable. During the 1994 season, David delivered one of the greatest performances in NBA history, scoring 71 points in the final game to secure the scoring title over Shaquille O'Neal. It was a performance that displayed his versatility, a player who could dominate in the post, step out for jump shots, and run the floor like a guard. For Popovich, however, it wasn't these extraordinary feats that stood out most. It was his grace and mental toughness in accepting his role. David knew that to win, it would take sacrifices, Pop recalled. He knew Tim needed the ball. He knew our system worked better when Tim was the one yelling and focal point, and that's why we became who we were. His commitment to excellence extended beyond basketball, and it's something Pop often spoke about when reflecting on their time together. As one of the rare professional athletes with a Naval Academy background, he brought a sense of discipline and service to his tenure with the Spurs. He was known for his charitable efforts, founding the Carver Academy to help at-risk youth and consistently taking time to mentor younger players. That philanthropic spirit was a cornerstone of what made Robinson special, not just in Pop's eyes, but to the San Antonio community as a whole. And one of the defining moments of their partnership came during the 1999 playoffs. With Robinson nearing the end of his career and Duncan in the driver's seat, the Spurs faced fierce challenges on their way to the finals. In the pivotal Game 5 against the New York Knicks, the Admiral put forth a performance that reminded everyone why he was special. He anchored the Spurs' defense, made key rebounds, and brought composure to crucial moments, ultimately securing the franchise's first NBA championship. While Duncan was undoubtedly the finals MVP, Pop took time to highlight Robinson's contributions. Without David, there is no championship. Period, Pop declared. He wasn't just playing basketball, he was showing us how to win as a team. Even after he retired in 2003, his influence continued to ripple through the Spurs organization. He set the tone for professionalism and commitment that players like Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili carried forward. And his impact on Popovich went beyond the wins and accolades. They shared a respect that transcended basketball. For Pop, coaching Robinson wasn't just about strategy. It was about learning from one of the best individuals the sport had ever seen. He didn't just elevate me as a coach. He elevated all of us as people, Pop confessed. Their bond remains one of the most remarkable chapters in NBA history, a player-coach relationship rooted in mutual respect and a shared belief in doing things the right way. But hold on, everything we have covered about David Robinson wouldn't have been possible without this player. In fact, he was the masterpiece of the Spurs dynasty. Tim Duncan, the legend who defined Popovich's legacy. He was the embodiment of everything Popovich built in San Antonio. Together, they shared one of the most enduring and celebrated player-coach relationships in NBA history, spanning nearly 2 decades and culminating in 5 championships. Both were quiet geniuses of the game, deliberate in their craft and relentless in the pursuit of excellence. Known as the Big Fundamental, Duncan's steady, unshakable demeanor perfectly complemented Popovich's fiery personality. While many stars relied on flair and charisma, his approach was stripped down, devoid of theatrics, and rooted in technical mastery, a humility that Popovich both admired and leaned on. During Duncan's Hall of Fame induction, Popovich reflected,
With Timmy, the relationship was I just wanted him once in a while to listen to what I said or just nod his head so that I knew that he heard me. I just wanted some self-satisfaction. I wanted to feel good about myself.
But getting to this point with Duncan required a journey as methodical and patient as his style of play itself. And before becoming Popovich's partner in building a dynasty, Duncan honed his skills at Wake Forest, where he spent 4 years, becoming one of the most polished and mature prospects in history. At Wake, Duncan's reputation for doing the dirty, overlooked work of basketball, defense, rebounding, and positioning, made him a coach's dream long before he ever wore a Spurs jersey. He stayed in college in part to keep a promise to his mother, who passed away when he was just 14 years old. Her dying wish was that he earn his college degree, and he fulfilled it with stoic determination. That same quiet resolve would define his entire career and solidify his bond with Popovich, another figure who valued hard work over drama and fundamentals over flash. And when Duncan joined the Spurs as the first overall pick in 1997, Popovich immediately recognized his new centerpiece, a player capable of elevating the franchise to places it had never been. Duncan didn't even need bright lights or personal validation. All he craved was the pursuit of perfect basketball. In their first full season together, the Spurs stormed through the league, with Duncan averaging a double-double at 21 points and 11 rebounds per game. That success set the stage for their 1999 championship, an accomplishment that Popovich often framed as the turning point in his career. At just 23 years old, he led the Spurs alongside David Robinson, forming one of the most balanced front-court duos in NBA history. And while Robinson was the face of the team's early years, Tim was its quiet, emerging heartbeat. Popovich would later say, Tim didn't just play the right way, he lived the right way. He showed everyone, coaches included, how this game should be approached. On the court, he was unmatched in his consistency and his mastery of fundamental basketball principles. Across his career, he earned 15 All-Star selections, scored over 26,000 points, and pulled down more than 15,000 rebounds. Yet Tim's numbers, eye-popping as they were, never told the full story. Popovich valued something far more elusive in his star: adaptability. Tim could dominate offensively when needed, whether by punishing opponents with his signature bank shot or outsmarting them with patient post moves, or shift his focus entirely to stabilizing the defense. During the Spurs' championship runs, it was common for him to step back and let others shine. Whether it was Tony Parker or Manu Ginobili sparking them with his chaos, Tim's willingness to elevate teammates over himself defined their dynasty. Yet even Duncan, despite his robotic nature, had his moments where he revealed his humanity, moments where his poise and resolve served as a buffer for the team during both triumphs and challenges. Take, for example, the grueling 7-game series in the 2005 NBA Finals against the Detroit Pistons. Tim hadn't been perfect in that series, drawing uncharacteristic criticism for missing key shots in Game 5. But in the critical Game 7, when everything was on the line, Duncan anchored the Spurs with 25 points and 11 rebounds, winning Finals MVP. Popovich later revealed that he never doubted Duncan for a second, saying Tim was always at his best when the stakes were highest. His calmness wasn't fake. It was a reflection of his belief in his preparation and his team. And as the years passed, Pop and Tim grew together in ways many player-coach relationships never reach. They joked that sometimes they didn't even need to speak to understand each other, but beneath their humor lay an unbreakable trust. When the Spurs suffered one of their most heartbreaking moments, the infamous Ray Allen shot in the 2013 Finals that denied them a Game 6 victory, Popovich knew he would be the first to rally the team back. Sure enough, the following season, Tim approached their goal of redemption with an almost obsessive focus. The result? A historic run to the 2014 championship, capped by a dominant performance over the Miami Heat. It was their 5th title together, and perhaps their most poetic one, a testimony to their resilience, trust, and shared mission. And what continually amazes those who know their story is the absence of ego in their relationship. Duncan, a once-in-a-lifetime player, could have easily chased individual accolades or a brighter spotlight. Popovich similarly could have leaned into his reputation as one of the greatest coaches, making it about his system or his tactics. Instead, they both surrendered their individual legacies to the altar of team success. And by the time Tim retired in 2016, his legacy had been cemented as one of the greatest players in NBA history. For Popovich, however, Duncan's career meant far more than the banners hanging in the rafters. People talk about Timmy's fundamentals, his talent, but it's his humanity that I'll remember most, Popovich said after his jersey retirement ceremony. He taught me how to be a better leader and a better person. Tim wasn't just Pop's greatest player, he was the soul of Gregg Popovich's legacy. Now, we move on to one of his most admired player who, despite his kidney disease, was a key player in Pop's success. Sean Elliott, the resilient warrior. For nearly a decade, Sean was the heartbeat of the Spurs, embodying the toughness, loyalty, and grit that defined Pop's philosophy both on and off the court. A versatile forward with a smooth jumper, solid defensive instincts, and an uncanny ability to deliver in clutch moments. He was more than just a player. He was a symbol of perseverance and determination. And his contributions to the Spurs' journey toward greatness culminated in their first championship run in 1999, a season where he overcame personal adversity to play a pivotal role. His iconic Memorial Day miracle against the Portland Trail Blazers in Game 2 of the Western Conference Finals remains etched in basketball history. Sean hit a breathtaking three-pointer while tiptoeing the sideline, turning the tide in the series. Reflecting on that shot, Popovich said, "That shot was Sean. He had guts, confidence, and just a belief we all could count on." His journey in the NBA wasn't just about his talent on the court, it was about his resilience off it. Drafted as the 3rd overall pick by the San Antonio Spurs in 1989, Sean quickly established himself as one of the most promising young forwards in the league. By his second season, he was already an all-star, showcasing his scoring ability and versatility. But Elliott's early career was fraught with challenges. After being traded to the Detroit Pistons in 1993, he struggled to fit in and was eventually traded back to the Spurs the following year. And while many players might have faltered under the weight of uncertainty, Sean returned stronger, reaffirming his loyalty to Popovich and the Spurs organization. And for Popovich, he was never just a reliable contributor, but a player who symbolized the heart and soul of the team, the embodiment of perseverance. Sean averaged over 14 points per game throughout his career, but his statistical output tells only part of the story. Pop often admired his mental toughness and ability to make the big plays under pressure. Sean was more than capable of hitting game-winning shots, but he was equally adept at making the small but impactful plays, deflections, timely rebounds, and clutch free throws that impacted the flow of the game. However, what truly elevated Sean's legacy was his ability to overcome unimaginable adversity and return stronger than ever. In the summer of 1999, shortly after celebrating the Spurs' first NBA championship, he revealed that he was battling kidney disease and required a transplant. The news sent shockwaves through the basketball world. Elliott underwent surgery later that year after his brother Noel donated a kidney to save his life. Most assumed his playing days were over, but he stunned everyone by returning to the Spurs just 9 months after the procedure. And reflecting on his comeback, Popovich said, "Sean wasn't just a player. He's a symbol of everything we're about, fighting through adversity, being a great teammate, and giving everything you have." His return to the court wasn't just inspirational, it was historic. When he stepped back onto the hardwood on March 14th, 2000, the nation brought the team closer. Fans, teammates, and even opponents were amazed by that, and Popovich never forgot the significance of Sean's return. "Sean made us believe anything was possible," Pop later said. "He inspired everyone in that locker room to give their all, no excuses. That's who Sean is." Popovich's admiration for Sean extended beyond basketball. Their bond was forged on mutual respect and a shared vision for what the Spurs could be. Pop valued his loyalty, particularly during a transitional time for the franchise when the Spurs were building toward contention. Sean wasn't just invested in his own success, he was committed to the team's success, setting an example that younger players like Tim Duncan could follow. Sean was the link, Pop stated in an interview. He had been there before we started winning, through the tough years. He understood what it took to get to the top. And of course, his most iconic moment remains the Memorial Day miracle. With the Spurs down by 2 points and time winding down in Game 2 of the Western Conference Finals, Sean caught the ball in the corner and drained a three-pointer while keeping his heels from crossing the line. The shot not only secured a win for the Spurs, but altered the momentum of the series, setting them up for their ultimate championship run. He retired in 2001, leaving behind a legacy of excellence, courage, and selflessness. For Popovich, Sean represented everything he wanted the Spurs to stand for. Though his career was cut short by health challenges, his impact on the franchise endures. Avery Johnson, the unlikely captain. Standing at just 5'11", Avery didn't possess the towering height or overpowering physical presence of Tim Duncan or David Robinson. He wasn't even a scoring machine or an elite defender either. Yet, Johnson forged an incredible career and earned Popovich's unwavering trust through intelligence, leadership, and unparalleled resilience. Known as the Little General, he carved out his role as the Spurs' vocal leader, serving as the bridge between Popovich and the players during their 1999 championship campaign, a season that would cement his legacy in San Antonio forever. Popovich often joked about his impact, saying, "Avery's voice was louder than mine. He was the captain, the glue, and the guy who made sure no one got out of line." But his journey to becoming one of Popovich's most cherished leaders wasn't without its challenges. It involved grit, sacrifice, and relentless determination to prove himself in a league that often overlooked players of his stature. Avery's career began mirroring his reputation as an underdog. Undrafted in 1988 after graduating from Southern University in Baton Rouge, he had a tough road ahead, bouncing around 4 different NBA teams in his first 2 seasons. It wasn't until 1991, when he joined the Spurs, that he began finding his footing. Even then, he wasn't a guaranteed starter or a long-term option. Johnson had to fight for minutes and win over coaches who doubted his ability to lead a team. And what made Popovich believe in Avery wasn't his stats, but his incredible IQ, the way he dissected plays, motivated teammates, and exuded confidence. From the moment Pop became head coach of the Spurs in 1996, he recognized his voice and vision were indispensable to building the culture he wanted. Avery wasn't just a guy who dribbled the ball up the court, Pop said in an interview. He saw the game 2 steps ahead of everyone else. He knew what was happening before it did, and the 1999 season stands as his crowning achievement and the moment he validated Popovich's belief in him as a leader. Despite being undersized in a league dominated by physical guards, Avery played a pivotal role during that championship run, organizing the team's offense and holding the locker room together through intense playoff battles. In a postseason run filled with iconic moments, he cemented his place in history during Game 5 of the NBA Finals against the New York Knicks. With the Spurs leading the series 3-1 and just seconds left on the clock, Avery received a pass from Sean Elliott and drained the game-winning shot, a mid-range jumper that clinched San Antonio's first-ever championship. That shot was Avery, Popovich recounted years later. Ice in his veins, confidence through the roof, and steady when we needed it most. And for Avery, the moment wasn't just about personal glory. It was about fulfilling the promise he made to elevate his teammates and bring a title to San Antonio. But his contributions went far beyond clutch performances. He embodied the Spurs philosophy, the one Popovich cherished so deeply that was rooted in teamwork and relentless effort. Pop often remarked that his leadership was instrumental in getting Tim and David Robinson to fully embrace the team concept during their partnership. Avery was the engine, Popovich explained during an interview. He pushed everyone to be better, and he didn't care if he scored 0 points doing it. He just knew how to make his teammates believe they could win, and that selflessness inspired not only the stars on the roster, but also the role players who fought for minutes. Malik Rose famously said, "Avery made everyone feel important. He wasn't the biggest guy on the team, but he had the biggest voice." And despite his championship success in 1999, Avery's NBA journey continued to be one of highs and lows. The Spurs moved on from Johnson after the 2001 season, opting for younger guard options as the team evolved. However, his influence on Popovich and the Spurs' foundation would leave a lasting impact. And when he transitioned into coaching after retiring as a player in 2004, Popovich proudly watched his former captain lead teams with the same passion and intelligence he brought to San Antonio. As head coach of the Dallas Mavericks, Avery guided them to their first NBA Finals appearance in 2006, earning NBA Coach of the Year honors for his efforts. While they ultimately fell short against the Miami Heat, Popovich later said, "Seeing Avery coach was like watching him play. He never stopped thinking 3 steps ahead, and he kept his guys believing in the goal, even when it was tough." Though Avery's playing career may not stack up statistically against legends like Tim Duncan or David Robinson, his legacy as Popovich's reliable lieutenant is undeniable. And in the annals of Spurs history, he stands as a shining example of what makes Popovich's philosophy so special. Mario Elie, the veteran with championship pedigree. The fiery veteran who joined Popovich's squad in the late 1990s, becoming a crucial ingredient in their historic 1999 championship run. Mario embodied the type of player Popovich loved to coach, driven, tough, and unafraid to speak his mind. But it was never just those qualities that made Mario special. His ability to thrive in high-pressure situations, elevate those around him, and steadily lead by example allowed him to carve a unique place in not only Spurs lore, but also in the heart of Popovich himself. Mario brought swagger to the team, Pop has said. He wasn't afraid to challenge guys, but he made everyone better because they trusted his experience. His road to NBA stardom was anything but easy, and his resilience became the defining characteristic of his career. Drafted in the 7th round out of American International College, a relatively obscure program, it seemed unlikely that Mario's name would ever be synonymous with NBA success. But instead of throwing in the towel, he proved everyone wrong by grinding his way through international leagues, including stints in Portugal and Argentina. This rugged journey toughened him, shaping him into the player who would later win 3 NBA championships and become an integral piece for championship teams. And by the time Popovich brought Mario to San Antonio in 1998, the veteran guard was battle-tested, a proven winner with rings from his time in Houston and chemistry built through countless battles on the hardwood. Popovich immediately recognized the intangibles Mario brought, those unmeasurable qualities like leadership, grit, and audacity that blended perfectly with the Spurs' methodical system. He wasted no time making an impact with the Spurs, embracing Popovich's defensive-minded philosophies while adding his signature intensity to every game. Known for his scrappy defense and clutch shooting, his contributions often didn't show up in stat sheets, but his influence permeated the team. And for Popovich, he was attitude personified, the kind of personality who didn't just play basketball, but lived it. One of the Pop's favorite anecdotes about Mario traces back before his Spurs tenure to Mario's famous kiss of death celebration after hitting a game-clinching three-pointer against the Phoenix Suns during the 1995 playoffs while playing for Houston. The audacity, the swagger, and the electricity of that moment didn't just win games. It defined his playing style. As Popovich once joked, that's Mario. He wasn't just skill, he was attitude, and that rubbed off on everyone. And by the time the Spurs entered the 1999 playoffs, Mario had fully cemented his role not only as a team leader, but as the steady presence who could keep the squad locked in through the ups and downs of their championship hunt. And his veteran leadership resonated with both the stars and role players alike, his voice echoing what Pop had been preaching for years: team first, ego last. In the locker room, Mario wasn't shy about calling out teammates when necessary, often delivering pointed critiques in a fiery yet constructive way, a quality Popovich valued immensely. Mario had no problem holding people accountable, Pop shared years later. And on the court, his ability to step up in high-pressure situations became even more critical as the Spurs made their way through the postseason. Clutch performances during tight games demonstrated why Popovich had wanted him in San Antonio. Mario had experienced nearly every playoff scenario imaginable during his championship runs in Houston and knew how to lead a team when the stakes couldn't be higher. In Game 2 of the 1999 NBA Finals against the New York Knicks, Mario showcased his clutch shooting once again, hitting critical buckets and playing suffocating defense to help secure a pivotal victory. And to the casual basketball fan, it may have looked like just another game, but for Popovich, moments like those were proof that Mario was the right man in the right place at the right time. The championship pedigree that Mario brought didn't just make him an asset during the Spurs title run, it influenced a generation of Spurs players who followed. His ability to elevate those around him, challenge teammates to bring their best effort, and rally a team through adversity mirrored the ethos of Popovich's Spurs dynasty. After their 1999 championship, Mario's impact on the Spurs lingered even as his role transitioned and eventually concluded. And to this day, Pop speaks about Mario with admiration, describing him as less of a player and more of an institution. The way Mario carried himself, the way he played with heart, those are qualities you don't just replace, Popovich said years later. He taught us what it meant to play with conviction, and we carried that forward. And for that reason, he made every moment count, leaving a stamp on both San Antonio and Popovich's legacy. Jaren Jackson, the unsung hero. He may not have been a household name or the flashiest star on a championship roster, but Popovich always saw his value. Jackson carved out a unique role as a glue guy during San Antonio's 1999 championship run. For Pop, Jackson wasn't just reliable, he was indispensable. Jaren was reliable, Pop said in an interview. You could always depend on him when you needed solid minutes or a big shot. And his presence on the court wasn't just about stats. It was about plugging holes in critical situations, providing stability, and doing the intangible work that doesn't always show up in the box score. His journey into the NBA was anything but conventional. Coming out of Georgetown University, he went undrafted in 1989. Few expected him to make a significant impact in the league, but his determination fueled his career. He began as a journeyman, bouncing between teams and even playing overseas before finding his way to the Spurs. And by the time Popovich saw him, Jackson had developed an astute understanding of the game, and his ability to adapt to different roles caught Pop's attention. What I appreciated about Jaren was his professionalism, Popovich shared during a post-game interview years later. He treated every minute on the court like it mattered, and that's exactly the kind of player we needed. And when he joined the Spurs, Popovich entrusted him with being a steady hand, whether as a defensive anchor, a spot-up shooter, or a calming presence during high-pressure moments. Jackson wasn't a player who dominated headlines, but his impact was undeniable, especially during San Antonio's historic 1999 playoff run. Averaging just over 8 points per game that season, Jackson hit multiple clutch shots to secure victories when others faltered. Pop often praised Jackson's unselfishness, an ability to embrace a role that wasn't glamorous, yet crucial to the team's success. And one memorable moment came during the playoffs when Jackson hit a game-sealing three-pointer against Portland, helping the Spurs edge out a win in a tightly contested series. And while the headlines focused on stars like Tim Duncan and David Robinson, Popovich ensured his contributions weren't forgotten. Jaren wasn't afraid to step up, Popovich remarked after the game. Whether it was hitting a tough shot or locking down on defense, he always delivered when we needed him. And his appreciation for Jackson extended beyond the basketball court. Known for forging deep connections with his players, Pop connected with Jackson's quiet determination and humility. He wasn't out there looking for glory, Pop shared in a rare reflection. He just wanted to help the team win, and that's exactly what he did. And his ability to thrive on the Spurs' structure system made him an integral part of the roster. On a team filled with stars, Jackson stood out for his willingness to do the dirty work, to dive for loose balls, box out with intensity, and provide dependable defense every time he was called upon. And while stars like Tim Duncan and David Robinson would draw double teams, Jackson was the player Pop knew he could count on to punish defenses for leaving him open. His corner three became a weapon in key moments, forcing opponents to respect his shooting and stretch their defensive formations. And behind the scenes, he brought a calm, steady energy to the locker room. In a playoff atmosphere fraught with pressure, Jackson's demeanor helped us keep the team focused. Popovich often said that championship teams need more than superstars. They need guys who can step up in the shadows and contribute when it matters most. To Pop, Jackson epitomized that philosophy. He was the type of player every coach hopes to have, Pop shared during an anniversary celebration of the Spurs title. He didn't need recognition. He just wanted to win. And as the 1999 finals approached, his contributions became even more vital. The ability to defend multiple positions provided Popovich flexibility in adjusting lineups, and his clutch shooting lifted the team during tense moments. In the finals against the New York Knicks, Jackson's quiet heroics helped the Spurs clinch their first championship, a moment Pop described as transformative for his coaching career. Jaren represented what makes basketball great, Pop said after the historic victory. Teamwork, sacrifice, and trust. Even as Jackson's career wound down, Popovich never forgot his impact. For Popovich, Jackson was a blueprint for the type of player every championship team needs. Jackson may not have been the brightest star on the court, but to Popovich, he was a hero nonetheless. A player whose impact proved that selflessness wins championships. And these players weren't just talented athletes. They defined the very essence of Popovich's coaching philosophy, teamwork, and resilience. Together, they helped him turn the Spurs into a dynasty, leaving a legacy of basketball excellence that still resonates today. All right, that's all for today. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.